You know, thinking can often feel, well, kind of inconsistent, right? One day you feel sharp, the next, not so much. The reason for that isn't random, it's systemic. The core concept we're going to break down here is that our thinking actually operates as a structured system, one that we can observe, analyze, and most importantly, understand.
At its heart, pretty much any system you can think of follows this super simple three-stage logic. There's an input, some kind of processing, and then an output. It takes in some raw material, it transforms it, and then it produces a result. This is the basic architecture of cognition we're about to deconstruct.
To make this really click, let's use a simple analogy. Think of a car. The gas is the input. The car's engine, that's the processing unit. It converts that fuel into energy. And the output is you reaching your destination. This simple mechanical model is a surprisingly useful framework for what's going on inside our heads.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start by defining thinking as a system, and then immediately look at its most common failure point. After that, we'll break down the 3 core steps: input, processing, and output, and wrap up with the feedback loop that helps the whole system learn and evolve.
Okay, so before we can build up a functional system, we first need to understand how it usually breaks down. And the most common point of failure isn't about not being smart enough. It's a structural problem. It's what happens when thinking turns into just reacting.
And right here, this is the exact spot where things go wrong. That critical middle stage, the processing, it gets skipped. It's just gone. Information comes in and a reaction immediately comes out. This isn't thinking. It's a cognitive shortcut, and it is the single biggest source of error in the whole system. So let's put these two side by side, because the difference is huge. Reacting is immediate, it's automatic, and it takes very little effort. You end up with an assumption, not a conclusion. Thinking, on the other hand, is delayed, it's structured, and it is effortful. That's how you get to actual reasoning instead of just a gut reaction.
All right, now that we've seen the problem, let's start building the solution step by step. First up, the input. This is the raw material that fuels the entire cognitive process.
So what do we actually mean by input? Well, it's pretty much all the data your cognitive system takes in. That includes all the external stuff, like books you read, conversations you have, but it also includes your internal knowledge, the memories and experiences you already have. This defines the entire universe of what you have to work with.
And this is absolutely crucial to understand. There's a direct, almost mechanical link between the quality of your input and the quality of your output. We've all heard garbage in, garbage out, and it's 100% true here. Biased input leads to biased thinking. Limited input leads to limited conclusions. It's that simple. If you want signal clarity, you need high-quality, filtered input.
Okay, now we get to the absolute heart of the matter, the processing core. This is that transformation layer, the cognitive engine, that gets skipped all the time in that failure mode we just talked about. This is where the magic really happens.
See, processing isn't just something that happens to you. It's an active transformation of raw data into something that actually makes sense. But here's the catch. It's hard work. It's metabolically expensive for your brain. It requires real attention and memory. And that is exactly why our brains, which are always trying to save energy, will default to skipping this step whenever they can get away with it.
So what's actually happening inside this engine? Well, it's doing 4 main jobs. First, there's decomposition, which is just breaking information down into smaller pieces. Then there's pattern recognition, where you start to see how those pieces connect. Third is causal reasoning, understanding cause and effect. And finally, validation, where you test the whole structure to see if it's logical and consistent. This is the actual work of thinking.
This is a great way to visualize it. Processing doesn't just store information, it connects it. It takes all those isolated data points from the input stage and weaves them into this coherent network of understanding. It's the difference between having a pile of bricks and having a house. One is just data, the other is a structure that has meaning. Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the output. Now, this isn't some separate event. It is the direct result, the final reflection of the quality of the 2 stages that came right before it.
Think of the output as the only part of the system that anyone else sees. It's the decision you finally make, the opinion you state, the judgment you form, or the action you take. But it is so important to remember that this visible conclusion is just the tip of the iceberg, the end product of a mostly invisible internal process.
This is such a key idea. When you see a bad output, a flawed decision or a weak opinion, that's not the actual problem. It's a symptom of a broken system that came before it. Trying to fix the decision itself without fixing the input and the processing, well, that's like treating a cough without ever addressing the infection causing it. It just doesn't work.
So let's just pull it all together and look at these two systems side by side. On one hand, you have broken thinking. The input is passive and random, the processing is shallow or skipped entirely, and the output is just a fast reaction. The result, it's inconsistent and unstable. But with structured thinking, the input is selective and filtered, the process is active and explicit, and the output is a deliberate conclusion. The result there is consistent and reliable.
But wait, we're not quite done. The system isn't just a one-way street. There's one last critical piece that turns this from a straight line into a dynamic learning machine, and that's the feedback loop. A really healthy, functional thinking system isn't linear at all. It's actually a loop. The output, the result of your decision or your action, doesn't just end the process. It cycles back around and becomes brand new input for the next go-around.
And this is how the whole system gets smarter over time. It's how it self-corrects and improves. Your actions create feedback, and that feedback helps you improve your next cycle of thinking. Without this loop, you're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. But with it, the system gets more stable, more accurate, and more reliable over time. It actually learns.
So if there's one single idea to walk away with, let it be this. Thinking isn't about how many books you read or how much information you consume. The real value, the real work, the very definition of thinking is what you do with what you consume inside that processing core.